Hey Dad, how's it going? Terrible. I have a stupid, lazy idiot for a son who doesn't even have a tank. Did I do something wrong? Do you have a tank? No? Then yes, obviously. What kind of dummy doesn't even have a tank? You're the kind of dummy. I'm sorry? Get out of my house, you pathetic dweeb. Go out in the world and make some money and get a tank. Oh, okay. Bye, Dad. Go to hell. Dad, look, I got a tank. Are you proud of me? Pfft, you call that a tank? More like a rusty pile of garbage. Get a real tank if you want to impress me. Okay, I will. Also, go to hell. Dad, look, I got a way better tank. It's shiny, tough, and powerful. I can beat anyone in this tank. Are you impressed now? Son, there's something I've never told you. What? I don't care about tanks. What? I just hate you. Go to hell. When I pick Dusty Game Society games, I usually stick to 3 categories. Either they're beloved classics that everybody already agrees are great, or games that are personally special to me and I want an excuse to replay and share with my dusty friends. Or weird, interesting games that most people probably haven't played. That's the kind of game we're talking about today. Metal Max for the NES only landed on my radar because I saw someone talking about how good the fan translation was. I was curious, so I looked into it and immediately said, yes, definitely, that's got DGS vibes for sure. I added it to my list of games to play, and there it stayed, waiting for the right time. And that time is about a month ago. That's when we started playing this. And now we're done, and I'm here talking about how it went, and you're here watching. All according to my plan. I'll tell you more about the DGS at the end of the video, but first, we're gonna talk about Metal Max, a game that asks an important question. What if Dragon Quest had tanks? Metal Max originally released in Japan in 1991 for the Famicom, which is Japanese for NES, and it ended up kicking off a surprisingly long-running series that continued through the Super Nintendo, the PS2, Nintendo DS, PS4, and Switch. Most of the games stayed in Japan. It's a popular series there, I guess, but thanks to fan translators, we can play the original version today. There's also a translated Super Nintendo remake of this that most people consider the definitive version, but I wanted the dusty old NES original. I mean, if we're gonna eat vintage RPG food, I want it straight from the can. Sadly, I didn't finish the game. I thought I was getting close, and then I looked up some information online and I realized I wasn't even halfway through. This is a long one, and this month got away from me. That's okay though. The Dusty Game Society isn't homework. We're here to try games and see what they're about and have fun talking about them. So let's do some talking. The simple way to describe Metal Max is to say that it's Dragon Quest, but set in like a Mad Max world. A Mad Max JRPG with a mix of cute sprites delivering lighthearted JRPG dialogue, while also being about mankind living on the edge of a world that has already suffered some sort of apocalypse. Small settlements are scattered across a dangerous wasteland full of monsters, bandits, and abandoned military hardware that is slowly mutating the world. The story's actually fairly light. You play as a young hunter, the son of literally the worst dad in gaming history. Seriously, within the first 2 minutes of the game, this guy tells you to stop being lazy, go make some money, go get a tank, and also to, and I quote, go straight to hell. And that relationship only goes downhill from there. You're on your own here, heading out into the world looking for adventure, money, and hopefully the fun gadgets and gizmos you'll find that will help you fill the hole in your heart that your dad put there. A story that I find a little too relatable. There are bounties to collect, friends to befriend, tanks to beat tank, and monsters to destroy. Unlike many RPGs of the era, Mad Max is surprisingly open-ended. It's less interested in telling an actual tight, grand, epic story and more interested in just letting you wander around and see stuff. The main plot is barely there, and it was never the thing pulling me forward. My favorite moments came from the side stuff. The random people in towns, the strange conversations, and the goofy little weirdos hiding out in the wasteland. The game has personality in places where you'd least expect it. One thing that's surprising is how the game sometimes forgets that it's post-apocalyptic. Large portions feel like a quirky RPG world. Then suddenly you stumble across something that reminds you that these people are surviving among ruins and probably eating expired canned beans that may or may not be radioactive. If you played Dragon Quest or any other NES JRPG, you already understand most of Metal Max. You wander around towns, talk to people, buy equipment, fight monsters, gain strength, all that addictive JRPG goodness, except here, instead of swords and castles, you have machine guns and tanks. Combat is traditional turn-based JRPG stuff, like you pick your attacks and use items, but there's an important twist. Your characters can fight on foot or inside vehicles, and those vehicles are the real stars of the show. Finding a new tank is an extremely exciting day in the Metal Max world. And upgrading your tank feels like character development. At a certain point, I realized I was less invested in my party members than I was in a collection of rusty death machines. Your tanks are where the progression really happens. You buy stronger weapons, better engines, improved armor, and all kinds of upgrades. The entire game starts revolving around money because money turns into tank parts, and tank parts turn into power. It's a beautiful ecosystem. You kill monsters to buy tank parts, so you can kill bigger monsters to buy bigger tank parts. It's the circle of life. That progression loop feels as satisfying here as any other JRPG. Early enemies that once wiped the floor with you gradually become manageable, and then easy, and it feels great. The problem is that Metal Max occasionally buries that fun stuff under a mountain of systems. There is so much stuff. So many different ways to upgrade, different categories and gadgets. I was constantly wondering whether a particular item mattered or whether I had accidentally missed something important 10 hours ago. This is one of those games where you look up a beginner's guide and the beginner's guide is 18 pages long. There's only so much you can say about an NES game visually. Metal Max looks good in a classic NES RPG pixel art kind of way, which means a little ugly. But like, it's ugly in the way that a beloved old pickup truck is ugly, which feels appropriate for Metal Max. The sprites are clean, the towns are distinct enough, and the vehicles look cool. What they absolutely nailed is the sense of scale. The world feels huge. Every time I ventured into a new area, I felt like there was a decent chance I would find something weird. I love how they play with scale too. Like how some areas you can't bring a tank into, so you go on foot, and that subtle element makes those buildings and towns on the map feel big. It sounds silly, but hopping out of the tank made me appreciate how tiny and vulnerable my little dude actually was. The enemy designs deserve special recognition because they are absolutely bonkers. Right from the start of the game, you're going to be running into bizarre mutant creatures like sentient guns and death machines and animals with guns fused together so they look like they were designed by a psychopath kid if you gave him a toy box and a hot glue gun. This is one area the game doesn't take itself seriously. It's goofy, and I am here for that, as you would probably have guessed, considering this is the TechDweeb channel. My only real visual complaint involves combat. Battles are just boring. There's barely any animation. All the encounters take place against featureless black screens. Like, why did so many RPGs decide that fighting inside a featureless void was acceptable? Dragon Warrior was giving us little scenic battle backdrops years earlier. Seems like they forgot how to do that for a little while there, later in the NES life. And when it comes to the sound, I'm sorry, Metal Max fans, we need to have a difficult conversation. The music in this game is bad. Not Final Fantasy, far from it. These tunes kinda drove me nuts. Thankfully, unlike lots of NES games, Metal Max includes one of the greatest quality of life features you could ask for in a game with terrible music. You can just turn the music off. That's exactly what I did. I left the sound effects on, opened Spotify, and picked my own soundtrack. The game instantly became a lot more enjoyable like that. The sound effects are not exactly spectacular either, but they are easier to ignore. Most of the audio simply exists, which I can appreciate because that's what I do too. My main criticism of the game is a recurring issue that was present pretty much right from the start, and it never went away. I often enjoyed the progression when I understood what was happening. The problem was that I frequently didn't. Metal Max is not interested in explaining itself. It gives you a wall of upgrades with no descriptions, and it's up to you to either just buy stuff to try it or look up a guide. I found myself bouncing between the game and guides constantly, and then half the time I would discover that the thing I was researching was more or less optional anyway, just there to be a thing you can poke at if you're bored or whatever. It's hard to know what's important. And the result is that I ended up feeling less like a badass wasteland hunter and more like a clueless dweeb trying to organize a backpack full of tank receipts. I wouldn't call Metal Max a masterpiece, but I would absolutely call it worth playing. It takes the framework of a traditional JRPG and does something genuinely unique with it, especially for the dusty old NES. Tanks, open-ended exploration, bounty hunting, and a strange post-apocalyptic setting. That probably stood out at the time, and it even still feels unique today. More than anything, I love the little stories, the survivors trying to carve out life in a broken world. As I slowly became exhausted by the actual game systems, the characters seemed to be equally exhausted by the apocalypse surrounding them, and I felt a sort of camaraderie with them. I don't know if that was intentional, but I found it weirdly endearing. This is a giant NES RPG. I mean, maybe too giant. I don't just mean the length or the physical size. I mean just it's packed with ideas and systems and secrets and optional stuff to poke at. Depending on your tolerance for old school design, that'll either be incredibly exciting or incredibly exhausting. I found it to be both, and that's why I love playing these kind of games for the Dusty Game Society. This game did something special for the time, and the only way to understand it is to actually play it, which I did, or am. I'm still playing it. I transferred my save file over to my Mew Mini, and I fully intend to keep chipping away at it. Maybe it'll take me another few weeks. Maybe it'll take months. Maybe my tank and I will wander this wasteland forever. But I hope I do get to the end someday, if only so I can head home and rub it in my jerk dad's stupid face. But the Dusty Game Society isn't a one dweeb show, and we had a whole bunch of dweebs rolling through the wasteland with us this month. Thank you to everyone on the screen who submitted a review. Every month I am blown away at how thoughtful and insightful and frickin' funny this community is. Also slightly intimidated. You guys are cooler than me. Kind of feeling like I'm playing second fiddle over here. I don't actually have a fiddle though. I do have a kazoo. Second kazoo? Is that a thing? One thing that became very clear reading through the reviews this month is that Metal Max got pretty much exactly the reaction I was hoping for when I picked it. I don't always pick games because I think everyone will love them. Sometimes I pick them because they deserve to be explored, for better or worse. And yeah, not everybody loved Metal Max, not everybody finished it. Some of the Dusty Dweebs bounced off it completely, but I think most found at least something that was memorable about it. So it did the thing, the Dusty thing. The most common theme was how unique the game feels. Nelly-Nez pointed out that Metal Max ignores almost every classic JRPG convention. You're not the chosen one. You're not collecting magical crystals. You're just some kid who wants to make money and buy a tank. Honestly, that feels more realistic as a life goal than most JRPG protagonists. The setting got a lot of praise too. Several people mentioned that despite being a post-apocalyptic wasteland, the world somehow manages to feel cozy and inviting. Gyarurat compared the structure to an old episodic TV show where you roll into town, solve a problem, and move on. That is such a good way to describe it. I totally felt that. Cohen had a great observation saying that by the end, it felt less like they were playing a character story and more like they were living their own adventure as a hunter wandering the wasteland. Takemi highlighted one of those little moments. A random guy sitting on top of a ruined building, looking out over the wasteland and wondering whether humanity caused all this themselves. Yeah, that kind of thing hits hard when you're not expecting it. Of course, the real stars of the show were the tanks. Because, as Rocksheep said, Metal Max isn't just about people fighting monsters, it's about people and their tanks fighting monsters. I don't think I've ever seen a DGS game where so many people focused on a single mechanic. Pun intended. Building, upgrading, and customizing tanks is incredibly satisfying. Even people who weren't completely sold on the game usually admitted that the tanks were cool. Banth joked that your dad might secretly be the most caring parent in gaming history because all his yelling eventually motivates you to level up your repair skill. The enemy designs were another standout. The Shibushi mentioned how much fun it was simply discovering what ridiculous monster would appear next. Cannon grasshoppers, jetpack gorillas, fish people with spear guns. It's like a JRPG on drugs. I've never done drugs, but I feel like if I did, I'd probably see hippos with guns in their mouths too. One thing I found that was interesting was how many people respected the game even when they weren't necessarily enjoying it. S Club 7 described it as a non-stop test of patience. Strahd called it awkward and occasionally irritating, yet both still came away with positive impressions. There was a lot of "this game frustrates me but I like it anyway" energy running through the reviews. KC2DPT had my favorite description of this feeling, comparing Metal Max to an old Saturday morning cartoon. Repetitive, sometimes clunky, but colorful and charming enough that you keep wanting just one more episode. Of course, that doesn't mean that lots of the DGSers didn't have serious problems with it. I don't think a single review avoided mentioning the menus, the inventory management, or the lack of guidance. Plenty of DGSers all ran into the same issues. Metal Max is fascinating, but it can also feel like doing paperwork for a tank dealership. The other big dividing line was the story. Some players like Mama Coco and Grizzpire wanted stronger characters and more narrative direction. Others saw the lack of story as part of the appeal and enjoyed the freedom to create their own adventure rather than follow a predetermined one. Strahd even compared parts of the game's storytelling to Dark Souls, where much of the world's history is discovered through locations, ruins, and small details rather than long story scenes. I also wanted to give a few special shoutouts. A-Rob once again delivered his review as an epic poem. Ord apparently rewrote the game's manual before even starting the adventure, and Strahd von Zarovich submitted a professionally formatted PDF review. A true gentleman scholar, as always. Overall, the consensus was pretty positive. Metal Max is messy, archaic, confusing, and at times exhausting, but it's also creative, ambitious, funny, memorable, and unlike anything else on the NES. And judging by the reviews this month, that's exactly the kind of game the DGS exists to discover. The Dusty Game Society is like a retro gaming club that I run for my patrons. Those cool people who support my channel. The DGS is something I started as like a thank you to them, but it's kind of become like a whole thing all on its own. Each month I pick a game for us to play, we play it, talk about it all month long, have weekly topical chit chats, all optional, no homework, no obligation, just play the game and let us know what you think. It's like a book club for retro games kind of thing. If you're interested in supporting whatever it is that I do here, and getting in on some Dusty Societying as a side perk, there is a link in the thingy below. Anyways, that's it. That's all we have to say about Metal Max. From all of us at the DGS, stay dusty, my friend.